Very much for inviting me to this famous law school. It's an honor for me to be here. It's my first visit to India at all. It's a very beautiful place. It's a bit warm, according to German standards, but I'll manage. My task today is to give you an overview of the topic of artificial intelligence and the law, which is quite new in Europe, quite new, I think, worldwide. And a lot of work is done today in Europe on this, and I'm part of some committees working on that, and I will give you an overview of what the Europeans are talking about. But let me begin with giving you a slight impression of what my home university looks like. That's a picture of Würzburg. It's the northern part of Bavaria. Bavaria is the southern part of Germany. Germany is in the midst of Europe, so it gives you an impression. And some of the colleagues here have already visited my university. The first to come was Professor Bajpayee. He came in winter. It was cold, and it was snow. There was snow everywhere, and he had not the right clothes. And I helped him. And from then on, we were close friends. Offered him some good stuff, and he felt warm again. And since then, everything has been quite okay. And then Professor Yadav came. He has been in this book twice, giving wonderful lectures too. And Professor Tiwari too came. And I think that's a good basis for a closer cooperation, and therefore I thought I should come to and give you some information on what I'm working on. Here you see some information on my career. I started working on internet criminal law and data protection 20 years ago, a long time ago. Then in 2010, the German government gave me some money for doing research in the area of robotics and law. And this was the first institution of its kind in Germany, perhaps in Europe, I don't know. And we established a center called the Robot Law Research Center, which now soon will be 20 years old. Some years later, I started working on the topic of autonomics and the law, or Industry 4.0. What's the meaning of this? The Germans, and French, and Italians are trying to build factories without human beings. Different from India. In Europe, there are not enough young people, not enough people who can do work. And the idea is to have factories with robots doing all the work, and the elderly people like me, they stay at home, and the robots are working for us. The idea is called Industry 4.0, and there are a lot of interesting legal problems connected with this. And some years ago, we started also working on automated cars and the law. There was a big European project, Adaptive. You can look it up on the internet via Google. It's a very large project on technology, but it had also a legal part. And I was in charge of that legal part. It started in 2012 and ended in 2017. Then there has been in the years 2016, 2017, a German ethics committee on automated driving, automated cars. The idea was to prepare first legal regulation on automated cars, and by now we have a first law on automated cars in Germany, I think the very first law in the world. And by the new activity is a new EU high-level expert group on artificial intelligence that was founded in May 2018, and I'm a member of this group. We met only once up to now, but we set some topics, and I can give you information on these topics. We did not much work up to now. There are no solutions, but at least we know what the problems are that we want to solve. So, since we are here in a common law country, I want to start with some cases, some leading cases. These cases have had no court solutions. So these cases were not brought to courts, but they were discussed a lot. First case, a simple case I want to begin with, is the Baunatal case. Baunatal is a small town in the northern part of Germany. They have huge factories where Volkswagen cars are built. And Volkswagen already for many, many years is using robots to do the work. So big robots are pulling and carrying things. And one of these robots killed a human being, killed a worker. A worker went there, and another worker put a switch, or turned a switch, and suddenly this robot started moving very quickly, hit this worker, and the worker was killed. This perhaps was one of the very first cases in which a robot killed a human being. A robot killed a human being. This case got worldwide attention. Even CNN reported on this Baunatal case, but the solution, the legal solution, is not very difficult. It's a case of negligence. A person was killed, and it was killed by another worker, and this other worker was simply a negligent person. He turned the switch too early, and the machine killed the human being. So it was a case in which a robot killed a human being, but there's nothing mysterious about it. And this shows that probably in many cases, these robot law cases are not so very problematic at all. There are some cases that are problematic, but this first case was not so problematic. Another case, Aschaffenburg case, is much more interesting. Aschaffenburg is a medium-sized German city with perhaps 100,000 or 50,000 inhabitants, not very far from Würzburg. What happened? One of the first highly automated cars by Audi entered that city in 2012. It was on the wheel there sat a man around 60, and this car had a lane keeping assistance system, one of the very first lane keeping assistance systems. These systems are able to automatically control the car, and if you are tired and the car swerves to one side, then this machine, this computer will bring you back on the lane and go on. This is quite a good thing, can help you a lot. In this case, the car driver had a stroke. He lost consciousness at the beginning of the town, and he turned the wheel to the right side. Under normal circumstances, this car would have come to a stop in the bushes somewhere outside the village. But, of course, this lane-keeping assistance system functioned perfectly. It functioned perfectly, and after 200 meters, it brought back the car on the street, and then the car went on with high velocity for 2 kilometers inside the town, and inside the town, a woman and her little daughter were killed. The father, who was present, was able to jump aside. He got hurt on the leg. He survived. And the car hit a wall, came back from the wall, came to a stop, and the driver survived. He survived, but he was unconscious all the time. So in this case, you really have a machine, a self-driving machine, killing 2 human beings. And it's complicated. Who was the perpetrator? Who killed these people? Was it the car? Was it the driver? The car, at least in the civil systems, we could not say the car kills persons. The car is not a legal subject. The driver was unconscious all the time. He did not realize what happened. He was more a victim than a perpetrator. The car industry, perhaps, we'll come back to that later. This was a kind of leading case for this sort of things, and today all these premium cars in Germany have these lane keeping assistance systems. In 2012, it was one of the very first systems, an Audi car. Today, it's quite normal for sophisticated cars to have these systems, and therefore similar cases can happen all the time. Then Tesla case, you know probably, the Tesla case, Tesla is also working, or giving a lot of energy to the development of automated cars, and one of these Tesla cars drove an automatic function, and the car hit a truck, because the truck had a white color, and the car was not able to see a difference between the white colored truck and the sky. The car hit the truck and the person was killed. This again, I would say, is not very complicated case, because in this case, obviously the manufacturer made a mistake. An automated car, a car that can drive alone on the street, should have the possibility to see a difference between the sky and a truck. So this again is quite really a negligent case. And then the fourth interesting case we should talk about today, perhaps, is a TAY case. Perhaps some of you have heard of it. TAY is an avatar, an Indian word I've heard now. Yeah, it was a machine, computer system that was able to talk. It was able to talk and to give information via Twitter. And the idea was that TAY should be used to have nice talks with other people. So TAY, you could talk to TAY, say hello TAY, and TAY would answer, and then you could speak to TAY, and TAY would answer again. And TAY was a self-learning system. You learned to communicate. It got better all the time. With people talking to TAY, TAY got better and better, and it was a prototype. The idea was someday systems like this could be used, let's say, for homes for the elderly, or for hospitals, or for kindergarten, or in service institutions. Wherever you have not enough human beings to do the work, such a tape system that could be used. But what happened? Some people managed to manipulate tape. They managed to manipulate tape, and tape learned the wrong words. He learned the wrong thing, and he thought that it would be nice to turn racist. He turned racist, and he started to insult people with black color, and he started to insult women. So Microsoft, after one day, had to take him off, to take the system offline, because Ray had, I think he said, was it Obama, looking like a monkey, and he wanted to kill several female students, and then they had to stop it because they had developed in the wrong direction. So it's a self-learning system, but obviously a system that is very easily to be manipulated. You can understand what could happen with this technology when it would be used in cars. A self-learning car, learning to kill people, for example. That would be impossible. So these cases are quite interesting in different aspects, and today and on Thursday I will give you some information on how these cases could be solved and how these cases could be handled. Let's start with some basic information concerning robots. The main question is, will they be our servants? Will they be our partners? Will they be our rulers? Some people are afraid of robots as rulers. Much of this is science fiction, but today in many European countries we have industrial robots. We had them for 30 years. Industrial robots used in big factories. That's quite normal, it's standard. They have no consciousness, they have no sophisticated programs, but they are able to lift heavy weight, and they are used all the time. There is nothing new in this. Today, these robots are starting to interact with human beings. This is new. In the past, they worked alone. Today, they interact with human beings. For example, I can give something that is too heavy for me to the robot, and he will take it, and hold it, and I can move the arms of the robot in whatever direction I wanted to move. This makes it possible that the robot could make a mistake and hurt me and kill me. Former times they worked alone, today they work together with human beings. So that's something new. And more service robots are used in Europe, but I believe also in Japan. They use a lot of service robots in all kinds of places. There are also toy robots for children. Imagine a toy robot has a self-learning possibility, and it learns to hurt the child. And if you transform this tape problem to a self-learning toy for children, this system is hacked and it learns the wrong things. What would be the legal outcome? Who is liable? That is quite problematic. Medical robots are used quite often, for example, for surgery. Military robots, of course. And then there are robots in a lot of other fields. So the robots are coming. The moment as servants, perhaps soon as partners. I don't hope they will be our rulers in the future. These robots come together with artificial intelligence. What is the difference between a simple machine and a sophisticated robot is that the robot has artificial intelligence. What are the uses of artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence even now can do mechanical, repetitive work very quickly, very energetically. They never tire, they are very attentive, they are not bored, they don't get aggressive. So there are a lot of advantages in using artificial intelligence for in all fields of work. Search engines, for example, are built with artificial intelligence, and all of us know that search engines have a lot of it. More and more, artificial intelligence is used for pattern recognition. For example, if you get a screening in the doctor, normally the doctor looks at the screen, at the picture, trying to detect some problems in your body. These machines, this artificial intelligence, can do this much faster and much better. They hardly make any mistake. So in pattern recognition, machines and artificial intelligence is by far better than all human beings. So it's only a question of time when artificial intelligence will take over some parts of medicine. Not all, of course, but some parts of medicine. Then translation is something that artificial intelligence now can do very well. Some of you perhaps use the Microsoft translation systems, which are very good by now. 10 years ago it was possible to automatically translate, let's say, German into English. Today, you insert the German text, and you get within 1 second an English text, which is quite good. Not perfect, but quite good. And this is getting better and better all the time. It's only a question of time when you can use small machines and you talk German, and outside comes a Hindi language. So 20 years to come, perhaps I will be able to talk to you in your home language. Speech, they are learning to talk. These machines are learning to talk. Tame use Twitter, like President Trump using Twitter, but they will be able to speak very soon. Then the newest topic are self-learning machines. So the knowledge they have is not only put in by the programmers, but they are able to learn by themselves. They get better by themselves, which is something very interesting because it could happen that they get better than their makers, they get better than human beings. This opens the path in the direction of science fiction, of computers being more intelligent, more knowledgeable, more powerful than human beings. And today is the first step into this direction. So artificial intelligence is coming, and our task as lawyers is to help to control it. We won't have technology take over everything, but we want to control. Society wants to control this new technology. The law is a means to control these developments. Robots and computers have something very special about them. What is different from other kinds of technology? That is, they can be so human-like. And there are some quite interesting psychological aspects concerning this. Here you see the faces of different robots, starting from a robot on the left upper side, which does not look like a human being at all. And if you go down to the right side, they are going to be more and more like humans. They are looking like humans. And there's something very special to this aspect, because there's a psychological phenomenon called Uncanny Valley phenomenon. Some of you have heard about it. Normally, we find robots looking smart or likable. They are beautiful. We like them. But when they get more human-like, there's one point in which we find them shocking. They are shocking. They are terrible, like a dead person, like a monster. Then again, if they are looking exactly like us, they turn human, likable again. And this is called the Uncanny Valley problem. And it means a lot for the makers of robots. They have to make the robots either looking not at all like a human being or looking exactly like a human being. Otherwise, if they fall into this uncanny valley, everybody will be afraid. If you want to have a robot taking care of the elderly, robot taking care of children, a robot as a service robot, you should have a robot that people like. They want to see the robot. They would be happy with this robot, and not a robot that looks shocking. This shows there's human beings have a special problem with robots, with these machines, which one could call anthropomorphism. We like to identify with these machines. They behave in a similar way, they look like us, and this means that we have a tendency to think they have human ideas, human emotions, human feelings. We don't see the difference. If you have a car, which is obviously a machine, nobody would think the car loves you or hates you or is angry or so, but with such a robot, this can easily happen. This is something very tricky about this new technology, and the producers of this technology have to take care of it. So this slide, I hope you can read it. In this slide, I've tried to give you an overview over nearly everything that is talked today about in the area of robots, ethics, and law. I put in ethics too, because ethics, in a certain sense, is a kind of background for the lawmakers. Now, before making a law, before regulating something, you have to think about your values. What do you want to have? What you don't want to have? The values are different from culture to culture, from country to country. This is clear. So the ethical analysis comes first, and then comes the legal regulation. And on this slide, you see the abstract problems on top, and the present topics on the left side, and the future problems on the right side. So if you are starting on the left side below, you see the concrete present topics. The topics we are talking about today is the protection of privacy. Protection of privacy, I think, was the very first topic talked about in this robotics area. Protection of privacy, because the sensors of the robots never tire. They see everything, they take your personal data down. This is a big topic today in Europe. Then labor law. These machines obviously are now working together with human workers. What are the rights of the human workers in connection with these new machines? These machines never tire. The idea could be simply to fire human beings and to use robots, which means a lot of unemployment. Constitutional law is a big topic. What does the constitution say on these new technology? In Germany, for example, the constitution says the state has a task to supervise technological development, and as soon as the technological development is dangerous for society, the state has to interfere. The state must interfere. So the technology is not totally free. Big companies cannot do whatever they want to do. The state will interfere if there are some developments that could pose a danger to society. And then, of course, comparative law. What is interesting in this topic is it's a technological development that happens in many developed countries of the world, not only in Europe, also in your country, in India, in China. Israel is very much advanced, the United States, of course. So in many countries, not in all, but in many countries, this development towards artificial intelligence and robotics takes place. And therefore, it's a good idea to look what the others are doing. I have to admit that the Asian nations have far more experience in this. Asian universities always send people to Europe to learn, but the Europeans were a bit stupid about that, and did not send enough people to other countries to learn. So today I think it's important to have a contact in both directions. So protection of privacy, labor law, constitutional law, comparative law, but of course also laws of admission, for example, admission of automated cars on our streets, insurance questions, criminal liability, someone is hurt by a machine who is criminally liable, civil liability, and I would say these are the problems of today. Then there are problems of the future. For example, the problem of the question of what do we think of convergence of men and machines? Human beings and machines could convene. Why? Even today, there are some artificial limbs that are more powerful than natural limbs. You have, for example, prostheses made of iron or steel that make you run faster than you can run with your natural legs, or arms made of iron and so on. Up to now, they are used for handicapped people. What if someone says, okay, I want to have a better fist, I have to have better legs, take off my sound legs, and I want to have these artificial legs. Is it allowed? Is it possible? Would we punish a doctor who would do this? Difficult. And all the implantation of chips into human beings, this is done also in Germany sometimes. Animals are chipped, it's called they are chipped, so to be able to find your cat or to find your dog wherever the cat or dog moves, but of course you can do the same with human beings. Some children of rich people are chipped. In some party regions in Spain, people have party all the time, moving on the beach and so on, and they don't want to carry money with them. They have a chip under their skin that they can pay with their hand. There's some machine that's used to move close to their skin, and by this they can pay. So this chip. Now you can see the direction of the implantation of chips, implantation of new parts of your body, and so on and so on. This is a convergence of man and machine. It's beginning, but it's not much talked about yet. Dilemma problems. Most of you will know the trolley problem. This dilemma problem was a problem in the background of this German ethics committee. The idea was you have an automated car running or driving along the street. Two people are lying unconscious on the ground. the car normally would drive over them, but the car has an automatic function that could make the car swerve to the left side. But there's some person standing there. And this person would be killed if the car would swerve to the left side. Should the programmer program the car in a way that the car would swerve to one side, the left side, and by this killing this one person. So it is either killing two or killing one. This is the dilemma problem which was a lot of public attention. We'll talk about this on Thursday. Then e-person, I will give you some information on this now. Has anybody of you heard about this, e-person? No, it's a new move by the European Parliament, which said half a year ago that it would be a good idea to give personality, legal personality to robots. Giving legal personality to robots would make it possible to sue robots. The idea is if a machine causes some big problem and there is no human being that can be held liable, it should be possible to sue the machine by itself. And they introduced the idea of e-person, which is heavily debated by now. And even more in the future are topics like what are the status of robots? Are there things? Should they be treated like animals? Animals have a higher status than things. Imagine your favorite pets or so, or some holy animals you would not hurt. So is a robot more like such an animal? Or should it have even rights like human beings, which is science fiction? Then in the future, in the far future, philosophical movement, transhumanism, the idea that human beings, with the help of technology, should transform themselves into a mixture of humans and robots. But this is not something that lawyers should be concerned about, it's more philosophy. So this is covers most of what is talked about today in Europe, and I think most interesting for us at the moment are the topics on the left side below. Let's say comparative law, criminal liability, civil liability. The other things are more or less science fiction. Interesting, but still science fiction. I believe it's a good idea to have international discussions on these topics because, of course, we have different legal cultures. We have different cultures in Europe, in Asia. We have also this big difference between common law and civil law. According to these aspects, India and Germany are very different in all respects. But as I said, we have already very good personal contact, so somehow we can deal with each other without fighting and killing each other. So it's possible to work together. What is interesting is this technology is the same all over the world. Technology is uniform. Internet is the same in India and in Germany. Robots are the same in India and in Germany. Technology is perhaps the very first development that's the same all over the world. This makes it possible to talk about legal challenges, to learn from each other, and perhaps in the future even to regulate these new technologies in a similar way. Why should there be different regulation in India, Germany, US, and Japan and China? If the problems are the same, and the technology is the same, there should be the same legal answer. And to find these answers, cooperation is necessary. Here are some of these answers, which are problems which are very important today. I put together protection of privacy. As I said, let's think of a machine, let's say a toy. You have a toy for your boy or your girl, and this toy is standing in your home, and this toy can talk to this machine. But if you want to talk to a machine, the machine must listen to you. It listens to you all the time. And the machine is able to detect your movements. But this means the machine sees you all the time. It sees you all the time, it hears you all the time, it takes down, but it hears and sees. So all your personal data are recorded. And imagine someone hacks the machine and takes this data. It's a big challenge to privacy. Then civil liability, guilt-based liability, strict liability. Let's go back to this Aschaffenburg case. Now, if you remember this lane-keeping assistance system, driving into the town, killing 2 people. And the father survives. Civil liability would mean who is going to pay for the burial cost and for the doctor, for the man. In Germany, we have a system of liability of the holder of the car. It's normally the owner. So not the driver has to pay, but the holder of the car. The person who, in most cases, owns the car. And this person who owns the car has to pay for everything that results from the driving of the car, irrespective of negligence or intention. So simply the fact that you own a car makes you responsible for all the problems that arise from the car. The argument is, if you have the advantages of the car, you should also have the duty to bear the disadvantages. You have the advantages, you can move around, and therefore it's only fair that you have to pay. And this idea is connected with an obligatory insurance. Every owner of a car in Germany has to have an insurance. So if the car hits someone, the insurance will pay. So in the Aschaffenburg case, civil liability was no problem at all. The husband got burial costs of his wife and his daughter. But of course he said, this is not enough. My young wife is dead, my child is dead, I want to know who's to blame. I don't want this money is okay, but I want to know who's to blame. This is where criminal liability came. Criminal liability. Who was criminally liable in the Aschaffenburg case? The car itself? No. Cars cannot be held liable. The driver? No. The driver was more a victim than the perpetrator. The driver was unconscious all the time. He did not even act. And there was no negligence on his side. It was not known to him that he could have a stroke. So he was a standard normal driver, so no negligence, no intention on the side of the driver. So the driver is out, the car of course is out too. The producer, Audi. Audi at once sent a big team of people to Aschaffenburg to analyze this case. One could argue it was a case of killing by negligence. 2 persons were dead. The cause was the use of this lane keeping assistance system. If they had not used this lane keeping assistance system, the car would not have hit these 2 people. The car would have come to a stop outside the village. So only because of this lane keeping assistance system and the programming of this lane keeping assistance system, 2 people were killed. So you have the bad result, 2 people dead. You have the action of the manufacturer who built in these algorithms. You have causality, but for is given. Negligence. The big problem is negligence. Was it negligent on the side of Audi to use this system? And there was a lot of discussion. I was asked, because I was working in the university nearby, and the result was the public prosecutor said, no, there was no negligence on the side of Audi. Why? Because they did everything to avoid such a mistake. They could show that they had contacts with the US, with Japan, looking at similar technology, and they tried their best to avoid such things to happen. So in the end, it was said the manufacturer did not act out of negligence, and therefore there was no criminal procedure. So it was only a case of civil liability. The victim, the surviving father, got some money for the burial of his wife and daughter, but there was no criminal prosecution brought against the car manufacturer. Criminal liability, intellectual property law. Machines now are producing goods, and something very new is that you can, via the internet, give orders to the machine what kind of good you want to have. For example, in Berlin there's a small factory run by Adidas. I don't know whether you know this, in making shoes and so, and they produce only 1 pair of shoes according to the wishes of an internet user. You can contact Adidas via email and say, I want to have green shoes, this size, this fitting, this kind of material, everything. They will produce it within 1 day and send it to you. So far, so good. But what about these ideas of fitting, of the color, the material? This could be quite clever ideas. Who is the owner of these ideas? Is it the original user, but he has no interest in these ideas? Is it the company that put up this machine? Is it the machine itself? Some of these machines now are improving these ideas, And these ideas, this intellectual property, whom does it belong? Who's in charge of the intellectual property? That's a big problem. And then, of course, there are consequences of robotics for the society as a whole. The danger of monopolies. You have already in the internet area monopolies that are very problematic. Monopolies are not always good for society. They can have very bad effects for society. The danger of unemployment. If robots are used as workers, what are the normal people are going to do? The workers. Loss of abilities. If machines are doing everything for you, you will lose some of your abilities. For example, these calculators that were brought up when I was young had the effect that since 30 years or so, nobody can do mathematics in his head as good as the former generation. My grandfather or grandmother could let's say, 123 times 27 within a few seconds. For me, it would be impossible to do this because I was brought up with automatic calculators. And so we are losing, there's a danger that we are losing abilities. There's one movie, I don't know whether you have seen it in India, Wall-E. It's about a robot that clears up, and this robot can do a lot of things human beings are not able to do. So I forgot to ask when I started how much time I have. So as soon as it gets boring, please give me a sign and I will stop.
We can go, we have enough time.
Enough time, good. I will. But you can, if the one word of you when I stop at once.
No. If in the meanwhile, if you have anything to ask, you can also interact. That is yeah.
So let's a quarter of an hour and then we can have some discussion. So I talked a lot about problems. Here are some positive sides. Perhaps you have seen this machine. This is a machine. Yeah, this white thing is a machine. It's called Paro. It's warm. It purrs. It understands your name. If you talk to it, it can answer. And it's used in homes for the elderly to activate them. And there are places in Japan. There are some research done in Japan on this. There's very old people simply sat in the chairs, did not talk at all, a little bit of eating, sleeping, waiting to die. Nothing happened for years and years. And then they are given such a robot, such a machine. And at once they start to talk to this machine. The machine answers. They give names to the machine will come and purr and snuff and so on. And very nice. I once had it in my arms like a little child. It's really, really nice to have it. And then these people started to talk about their machines, giving some information to the other people in their room or in the home of the elderly, what their robot had done. This is a positive effect. It's a positive effect. The problematic effect is some of them did not realize it was a machine. Some of them thought it was an animal or something similar like a human being, something quite intelligent. So there's an aspect of fraud in this, an aspect of illusion, which could be a problem. We could talk about it. I had a case in Germany some years ago. There was a demented old lady that had been married for 60 years. Her husband had died, and she got intellectually, she lost her mental abilities very quickly after the death of her husband, and she was brought to a hospital, and they did something a bit strange. They used an artificial intelligence unit and used the face of the husband. And now the husband is on the screen in the room of this old lady, telling the old lady what to do. Take your pills, or stand up now. Yeah? And she does what he says. She's used to that. And it's to her, it's good to her. Yeah? She helps her a lot. She is now far more active, but on the other hand, it has something strange, something problematic about it. And we as lawyers will have to think about whether we want this or not. So again, this Kate case, I talked already about some background. Self-learning robot chatbot is given information that turns the machine into a racist. The machine starts to insult people. Now the interesting question is, what is the legal situation? So let's think that the machine is talking to me, and we're talking ugly old German professor. I get a shock. I have to go to. I'm not used to this kind of talk. Normally students are nice and friendly, but this machine is hurting me terribly. I get a shock. I have to go to the doctor. The doctor wants me to pay a lot of money. So who can be held liable? One could say, of course, the manipulators. The manipulators can be held liable, but normally the manipulators are not known. You don't know who they could be. Some people very far away. They cannot be identified. The machine, no, machines are not, cannot be held liable. The producer of this program, or the producer of the program would argue my program had no fault at all. It functioned perfectly. I was asked to build a program that was able to learn, and this J system was able to learn. It learned the wrong things, but that's not my fault. That J is like a little child you are sending to a school, and the child is very intelligent and very clever in picking up words, and this time the child has picked up bad words, come back and started to insult people. One would not say it's a blame of the parents. But intelligent child, and here it was an intelligent and clever system that functioned perfectly. So it would be difficult to say the manufacturer is to blame. It would be difficult to say the manufacturer is liable for this, especially if you turn to criminal law. Criminal law inside is also criminally relevant. The manufacturer was not the one who insulted me, it was a machine, but the machine cannot be held liable. So there's a danger that nobody can be held liable, which would be perhaps a problem if this kind of technology is used in many areas. You should think of this case just of an example of what could happen if self-learning algorithms are used in a variety of fields. They could use basically everywhere. And something like this could happen in every field. The kind of dissolution of liability. Something that happens because of hacking activities. You cannot identify the hackers. The hackers have no money. You cannot get something from them. And then who's going to be liable? Or are we all obliged to carry the blame ourselves? So there is some historical science fiction background for this. Rules for robots, rules for machines. Asimov is known here too, of course. He formulated 3 rules already in the 40s. A robot may not injure a human being or in action allow a human being to come to harm. Second, the robot must obey the orders given it by human beings except where such orders would conflict with the first law. And third, the robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second laws. This is quite okay, but these rules are not used. They are not introduced into the machines. It's literary story. It's a good story. It's quite interesting, but it does not help us at all. And moreover, legally, from a legal point of view, they are a bit of naive. What is harm, for example? What would count as harm? So with these rules, the work is just starting. It's not, these rules are not a solution. And therefore, the European Commission now had this idea of an e-person. And I have to admit that the Robot Research Center in Würzburg had some part in this development. We talked about this 5 or 6 years ago and formulated the Green Book on robotics for the Commission, and somehow they took it over. We did not advise them to do so. I'm rather skeptical about this e-person idea, but I admit there are some advantages in having an e-person. So there's a report by Mady Delvaux, a woman, a very active expert on robots of the EU Commission. You find it also online, Commission on Civil Law Rules on Robotics, 2015, and so on. So they say we have basically human beings as natural persons. All of you, me, myself too, we are persons, we are natural persons. Then, 100 years ago, at least in the civil law region, I think, but also in the common law regions, a legal person was introduced. So big companies have personality too. You have natural persons, you have legal persons, so why not have an electronic person, a new kind of person? the lawgiver could do this. From a positivistic standpoint, it would be possible to introduce a legal person. Why? What are the advantages? Advantages, you could sue a robot. You could sue a robot. In the Tay case, you could sue Tay. So all these problems I talked about, who is going to be liable, they would disappear. Tay is the one who could be sued. And you should give some money to Tay. For example, the manufacturer would be obliged to give some money to Tay from the beginning on insurance. And then you could sue Tay, and if Tay misbehaves, there would be the possibility of financial support. So these are the advantages. Disadvantages, in Europe now there's a hot debate going on, and most people from philosophy, theology, sociology say it's absolutely impossible to give personality to machines. Because for them, personhood has something really human-like about it. So they say it's impossible to have machines with electronic personality. So this idea has some tendency to be misunderstood. This is one of the disadvantages. Perhaps in discussion we can find more. What is the basic argument this is the war was taken over by the Parliament of Europe, European Parliament. They had a resolution in January 2017, so 1 year ago, 1.5 years ago, and they say it would be a good idea creating a specific legal status for robots in the long run, so that at least the most sophisticated autonomous robots could be established as having the status of electronic persons responsible for making good any damage they may cause, and possibly applying electronic personality to cases where robots make autonomous decisions or otherwise interact with third parties independently. So this is no longer an academic idea. It's no longer simply an idea in one of the many papers of the European Commission. It's a decision by the Parliament of Europe. It has not been put into practice, so the states of Europe should form the regulation, but it's now in the legal sphere, this idea, which makes it important. And right now, at the moment, there's a uproar in the electronic society, or let's say internet society. Many people are quite critical of it, and there was an open letter to the European Commission on artificial intelligence and robotics in May this year. They say the creation of a legal status of an electronic person for autonomous, unpredictable, self-learning robots is justified by the incorrect affirmation that damage liability would be impossible to prove. So they say it's not a good idea because the affirmation that damage liability would be impossible to prove is incorrect. Well, I think they misunderstood the basic idea of the e-person. It's not about proving liability, it's about liability itself. It's simply the case that machines cannot be held liable up to now. If a machine produces some harm, you cannot hold the machine liable in all European countries. So it's not about criminal procedure or civil procedure or about the idea of to prove something. It's about the material law. So they misunderstood the idea. Nevertheless, they are strongly against this idea of an e-person. The arguments are there's no similarity of a robot to natural persons, which is true. There's no similarity of a robot to legal persons, which is not quite so true. Also the trust model that you can see the machine according to a trust law is also not convincing according to them, and therefore they are against it. The discussion is still going on. I personally, I would say we don't really need this electronic person. There are other possibilities to solve this problem of a diffusion of liability in criminal law. I think we simply have to accept that when a machine hurts someone, it will be impossible to punish the machine. It will also be impossible to punish the producer. We have to accept that. In civil law, I would say if you would have more strict liability regulation, then we can solve these liability issues, and we don't need the e-person. So let's say, for example, we could introduce a system where the producer of the robot has to pay all the damages that the robot produces. like we have it now in Germany with the cars. The owner or the holder of the car is liable for everything that happens out of his car. Is it similar like this? Either the owner of the robot or the producer of the robot would be liable for every harm that comes from his machine, irrespective of intention or negligence, strict liability. It's not yet in force, it's not given law, but we could introduce it. If you would introduce it, somebody who is hurt by a machine could get damages from another human person via strict liability. So we would not need e-personality. Of course, some countries don't know strict liability. As far as I know, in Britain, you have no strict liability in the car traffic. Germany would have it. In England, they don't. As far as I know, they don't have it. So countries without strict liability may perhaps think more positive about e-personality. And perhaps there are even other possibilities to deal with these liability gaps I talked about in the take case. It will remain interesting. It's a fascinating topic. It's a topic that is quite complicated. I'm now very interested to hear your questions and to hear perhaps also some answers. One last point, there's a discussion going on rights for robots. I think this is science fiction. Rights for robots, I think there's no reason to give rights to robots. Machines can't have rights. Nevertheless, it's interesting to talk about this topic because it makes us sensitive for the question, what conditions do you have to fulfill in order to be a possible bearer of rights? Now, everyone would say machines can't have rights, but why? The reason would be they don't feel pain. They have no consciousness. They have perhaps no ability to see into the future. So this question, whether machines can have rights, makes you sensible to the, let's say, legal, to the philosophical background of the possibility to have rights. And there could, and with this point I want to finish, there could even be a development that goes into the direction of giving rights to robots. Why? More and more robots are used in close human interaction, in the homes for the elderly, in the kindergarten. In order to have a close interaction through friendship between this machine and the human being, the machine must be very close in appearance to a human being. Must be looking like a friend, like a person. Yeah? And now imagine someone coming with a knife and cutting off the head of this machine. Then this old person or the little child would not say, "You damaged the thing, you damaged the robot." The child would say, "You killed my best friend, you killed my partner." And this is not a case of infliction of damage to a thing. Sachbeschädigung, it's murder. It's terrible. And if you think this way, I believe there could be movement in the general public to give a special status for these machines, perhaps similar to animals. But this is still something for the future. At the moment, I would say, we should stick to the idea that machines are things. They are not animals. They are certainly not on the same level as human beings. And even though there are enough problems, we as lawyers, I think we should solve them, and we should solve them in international context. Now I'm looking forward to your questions. Thank you very much.